Hi everybody, and welcome to our webinar. Good morning if you're in on the Pacific Seaboard of the USA. Good afternoon if you're on the Eastern Seaboard. Good evening, I guess, if you're in Europe. And well, thank you very much for staying up so late if you're in Asia. So welcome to today's webinar, Grow Your Own Green Oil Field. And today we're going to talk about biofuels and land, and we're going to talk a little bit about whether or not they're a good investment. Now, we conduct these webinars every Thursday, and the content of the webinar obviously changes week to week. The title of the webinars change week to week, and they last for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and we try always to begin and end promptly. You can see the webinars on the front page of our website. So if you go to our website, www.costaricainvest.ie, you can always see the schedule for the webinars there. If you look on the website, we do also record the webinars, and if you look to the right-hand side of the website, you'll see in the free downloads and media area that you can access all the previous recordings of previous webinars in that area there. Now, for those of you attending a webinar for the first time, you'll see a little control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you have any questions that crop up during the webinar, please feel free to type them in. There's a little question box there. You can type them in there. Now, we won't answer them immediately, or I won't answer them immediately, but we'll get to as many questions as we have time for at the end of the webinar. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about the secret that Texan oil men already know, and that is that an oil field is a great investment. It provides regular income and increasing prices. But today we're going to also talk a little bit about an opportunity that you probably don't know so much about, and that is a green oil field, and that's an even better investment opportunity. It's a one-of-a-kind opportunity, and we have very limited availability in our initial launch offer down in our renewable energy farm. And we do have a special offer for those of you on the webinar this evening, and that is a bonus available only to you, and I'll detail that at the end of the call. So, what can you expect from today's webinar? Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about Costa Rica. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate in Costa Rica. We're going to talk about real estate purchase and ownership in Costa Rica. Of course, we're going to talk in detail about biofuels, and we're going to mention this little bonus offer that we have at the end of the call. So first of all, a little bit of background about me. I'm an expert at investing in Costa Rica. I've been involved in ecological hybrid investments and development opportunities for the past 4 years. The companies that I choose to work with all have a very high level of success. We're sticklers for detail, and we always do a very, very thorough due diligence before we agree to work with or represent any company or project. Now, our criteria when choosing a company to project or a project to work with are relatively simple. We always work with development land, which we combine with agricultural commodities. All of our projects are green and eco-friendly and sustainable. We only work with high-quality, reputable companies with a strong track record who we enjoy working with, and we're particularly fond of opportunities that give smaller investments, or smaller investors, I should say, an opportunity to get involved. We only look at opportunities in Costa Rica that have a very high potential yield for our clients and that have a very strong ecological aspect to them. Now, our partners in this project are Day Group Costa Rica and United Biofuels of America, and I'm delighted to say that they tick all of the right boxes for us. Now, I'm sure, like me, that many of you on the call today have discovered to your cost, as I've certainly discovered to my cost, that many of the traditional investment opportunities that we invested in have proved very lacking. And indeed, some of those people that we put our trust in have proved similarly lacking. I know I've certainly discovered this to my cost, and those bank shares that I invested in Ireland do not seem so attractive now. The bottom line is that no investment advisor cares as much about your money or your assets as you do, or is as engaged at making it grow. But ultimately, if you had access to an asset class which combines a number of different asset classes, the first of which doubles in value every 10 years, The second of which Goldman Sachs says is akin to turning the clock back to the 1990s and investing in the PC revolution. Now, I don't know if you invested in the PC revolution, but I certainly wish I had. The next asset can multiply by 100% per year depending on circumstance. And together, these asset classes have a conservative per annum return of 38.2% or a 382% return on investment over 10 years. And better still, these are real assets. They're in your name. So if you were able to take charge of your future and invest in these real assets, would that be of interest? Well, what are we talking about here? Well, ultimately, what we're talking about is our newest investment opportunity, which is our renewable energy farm in the southern zone in Costa Rica. Now, I know at this point that many of you are already familiar with Costa Rica. I see a number of people that I've certainly spoken to on the call this evening, so I know you know a bit about Costa Rica, but for those who don't, just a little bit of quick background. So Costa Rica, where is it? Well, it's in Central America. It's the oldest democracy in Central and Southern America, with more teachers than policemen and a very high literacy rate of 97%. This year, as per last year, they'll spend more than 25% of their entire national budget on education. And it has a fantastic climate. People in Costa Rica live longer than most other places in the Western Hemisphere, with an average lifespan of 79 years of age. Now, nobody knows exactly why that is, but they think it's a combination of social factors, great diet, great climate, and together and exercise plays a significant role, and together all of those things make it a sort of a perfect environment for humans to live in. Costa Rica contains over 5% of the world's biodiversity, and that's a fantastic number when you think about it. 5%. That's 1 in 20 of every living thing on this planet lives in a tiny little country in Central America, and that country is called Costa Rica. Costa Rica is practically the country that invented ecotourism, and it ranks really highly in a number of polls. They're now ranked 3rd in the world in terms of environmental performance. 2 years ago, they were ranked 5th in the world, and they're improving that all the time. Now, Yale University carries out that study every 2 years, so we're all waiting to see what Costa Rica has done this year and whether they've achieved that goal of being number 1. Costa Rica is ranked number 1 in the world in the Happy Planet Index. And this compares the ecological footprint of a nation to its happiness. So the bottom line with Costa Rica is that they're very happy and that they don't do very much damage to the environment. Now, that study is carried out every year by the NEF group, which is an economic research group. Costa Rica is the 7th most politically and socially stable country in the world, and that's according to the Economist Intelligence Unit. And that's a fact that often staggers people when you tell them that the 7th most politically and socially stable country in the world is located in Central America. But it is, and that country is Costa Rica. Costa Rica is the most prosperous country in Latin America, and that study is carried out every year by the Legatum Prosperity Index. Costa Rica has preserved more than 25% of its surface area as natural park and forest reserve never to be developed, and they plan to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021, which is the 200th anniversary of their independence. More than 95% of Costa Rica's energy requirements comes from renewable resources. And it's an amazing story how they've achieved this. 20 years ago, the Costa Rican government realized that there were 2 areas of government in conflict: the Department of Energy and the Department of Environment. The Department of Energy wanted cheap energy, and that often came at a significant cost to the environment. So 20 years ago, they made an inspired decision. They decided to put one minister in charge of both. As a result of that decision, they took a 50-year view on their energy requirements, and they invested hugely in hydroelectric, wind and geothermal power. At that time, other countries thought they were crazy. Oil was cheap, and these technologies were very, very expensive. Now, 20 years later, Costa Rica produces more than 95% of its energy from these renewable resources: wind, water, and geothermal power. And other countries looked to Costa Rica and the inspired decisions that they made 20 years ago. So Costa Rica may be a small country, but it has very big goals. They plan, as I mentioned, to be carbon neutral by 2021. And to achieve this, they've got a number of incentives and channels in place. And last year they planted 7 million trees. That's more per head of population than anywhere else in the world. But to achieve this carbon neutrality, they're going to need to plant more trees and to preserve more land. And that's going to add to the existing value of development land. Costa Rica is a very attractive tourist destination. And the tourism industry is worth over $2 billion per year to Costa Rica, and they intend to grow that further. Last year, they had a bumper year for tourists, and in January of this year, Liberia International Airport, the second largest airport in Costa Rica, or the second international airport in Costa Rica, had more overseas visitors in January than it has ever had before. So Costa Rica had a bumper year for tourists last year, and this year looks like being even better. But Costa Rica doesn't want the one-off visitor. They want people to come again and again, and preferably to own a home in Costa Rica. And to do this, they've made the process of emigrating to Costa Rica very straightforward. And you and I have the same land and property ownership rights as a Costa Rican citizen, and that's enshrined in the Constitution. More than 1% of the population of Costa Rica is already North American expatriates and retirees. And why are they looking to Costa Rica? Well, they're looking for a lower cost of living, safety, security, great healthcare, and a fantastic climate. The cost of living in Costa Rica is about 50% of the cost of living in the USA, and healthcare is a fraction of the price. Imagine living in a beautiful climate in a safe place with great healthcare for a fraction of your current cost of living. But Costa Rica is also looking elsewhere to generate revenue, and it's looking to high-tech industry. A combination of lucrative tax breaks, a highly educated workforce, and low labour costs has successfully attracted many, many multinationals. So Costa Rica is also very business-friendly, with huge eco-aspirations, stable, safe, excellent healthcare. So let's talk a little bit about the economy of Costa Rica. Was Costa Rica affected by the global economic crisis? Yes, it was. Where wasn't? But it was more of a knock-on effect than a direct effect. But Costa Rica, as is their way, put in place IMF funding should they have needed it. But in fact, they never needed to use the IMF funding. However, the IMF did visit Costa Rica in May of last year to conduct a review of the Costa Rican economy. And they gave a very, very, very positive outlook. They said that consumer and business sentiment have firmed up and financial conditions continue to improve. The government's strategy to shield the economy from external shocks with IMF funds, which in the event were not used, have preserved confidence, maintained stability, and protect the most vulnerable groups. A supportive fiscal policy has provided a boost to recovery, and a cautious monetary policy has allowed inflation to move to low levels. National exports have risen strongly in 2010 and were up to 16.8% at the start of the year. And Reuters is predicting that the Costa Rican economy will grow by 5% this year. They achieved 4.5% growth last year, and Reuters is predicting 5% growth this year. Okay, let's touch on land in Costa Rica. Costa Rican land prices have seen spectacular increases over the past number of years, and in some areas, property prices have gone up not by hundreds, but by thousands of percent. But there are two very big drivers that are going to affect land prices over the next 5 to 10 years. The first of which is baby boomer retirees. Over 100 million baby boomers are set to retire over the next decade. Some estimates suggest that up to 20% will seek to retire abroad or spend a significant amount of time abroad. And when they look to retire abroad, what are they going to be looking for? Well, they're going to be looking for safety, great climate, quality healthcare, and a lower cost of living. Now, Costa Rica ticks all of these boxes. Now, Costa Rica couldn't possibly take 20 million baby boomer retirees. They only have a population of 4 million right now. But a significant percentage will look to Costa Rica. And remember, already more than 1% of the population of Costa Rica is American expatriates and retirees. So what have we got going on there? Well, we're going to have increasing demand, and that's going to tend to put property prices up. The second big driver for land price growth is Costa Rica's eco plans. They plan to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021, and 25% of the surface area is already zoned as natural park and forest reserve, never to be developed. This aspiration to be carbon neutral means that they're going to have to plant more trees. They're going to have to zone more land as natural park and forest reserve, and that process has already started. And if you Google just before Christmas, you will see that the Costa Rican government has secured funding to preserve a further 1% of its surface area as a natural park and forest reserve, allowing them to plant even more trees. And that process is going to continue. So what have we got going on here? We've got two drivers. We've got increasing demand and reducing supply. Increasing demand from retiring baby boomers, reducing supply because of the Costa Rica's plan to be carbon neutral as a nation and also to preserve their ecological integrity. So Costa Rica represents a good opportunity for land investment generally. But of course, when it comes to land investment, there are three things to consider: location, location, location. And we'll talk about that in due course. Now, at this point in the webinar, I normally welcome Michael Klein, the Chief Operating Officer from United Biofuels of America, to talk to us a little bit about biofuels and specifically about the renewable energy farm opportunity. But unfortunately, Michael is unavailable today. He's meeting with the Department of Agriculture in Costa Rica, and so I'm just going to play a recording of Michael speaking from our last webinar. Now, one thing to be aware of with United Biofuels of America is that just before Christmas of this year, they were appointed by Shell Oil as one of the top 25 global energy entrepreneurs in the world. And so that is a very illustrious appointment for them. So I'm just going to very briefly put everybody back into the waiting room, so don't think that the webinar has shut off. It hasn't, and we will get the recording of Michael up and running for everybody so that everybody can listen in. So it'll just be literally a minute and we'll get that sorted out.
Talk a little bit about UPA's background in this new industry. We're going to be speaking a little bit about biofuel, what it is, how it works, why it's become such a great investment in terms of the energy sector. We're going to talk about income land ownership, what we call a hotspot, and what a hotspot actually is. Our program is Renewable Energy Farms, and UPA is the first biofuel consultancy and development organization in Costa Rica. We've been working in outreach and planning with different governmental bodies throughout Central America, not just Costa Rica. We are based in Costa Rica. We've been primarily focused, apart from this past year and a half, prior to that over 4 years, we've been focused on commercialization and deployment more for the macro or large investment. We've had 4.5 years of R&D, and most of that R&D is in best practices in agronomics. Some of our awards and partners and consortia.
Sorry about that, everybody. We seem to have a slight problem with the recording at the moment. Not something we've come across before. Let's see if we can get that up and running again. again, everybody. I'm sorry about that. We seem to be having some technical difficulty here. If you can just excuse us for a second, and we'll try and get this sorted out. It shouldn't take very long. Again, I'll just put everybody back into the waiting room just for a moment.
Primarily focused from this past year and a half. Prior to that, on commercialization and deployment, one of the macro or large. We've had 4.5 years of R&D. Most of that R&D is in best practices in agronomic. Some of our awards and partners and consortium members, Earth University, famous university in Central America. Most of our agronomic teams are either teachers at the Earth University or graduated from Earth University. Ministry of Agriculture, or MAG as we call it, we've been working with them for 4 years, and they actually sit on our advisory board. As James mentioned, Shell has recently voted us to top 25 energy entrepreneurs. Bacope is our national fuel system here in Costa Rica. It's an important fact. They have recently just privatized their biofuel requirements. They have a strong biofuel requirement just in the next couple of years, by 2012, for a 10% blend. And they've been mandated by the government to purchase every gallon of oil grown in Costa Rica. They have been mandated to purchase this. International Energy Advisors and Costa Rica Invest voted us best investment in Costa Rica. Costa Rica News, as you can see us on Costa Rica News in several articles, they voted us best green company in Costa Rica, and we work with Day Group, one of the strongest real estate consultancy organizations. One of our big events is the Tropha Harvest Experience, something that we put on every year. This will be our third one in May 2011 that we're going to have in Colombia. It's a unique event in that it brings together various people from biofuel sectors. We don't just have the conference day, but we actually bring people out to a plantation and walk them through the entire process. It's generally a 3-day event where we have meet and greet parties, we have a full conference day, we have a full day on the farm, and then we have several smaller events going on. Next year, like I mentioned, May 25th to 28th, 2011, is going to be in Santa Marta, Colombia. Beautiful area, beautiful resort. We're working with partners down there that are developing over 30,000 hectares. We're going to have, again, the meet and greet, full conference day, plantation tours, UVA breakfast for various investors, net events. We're going to be doing an event on this particular topic, renewable energy farms and emitters. Essentially, is to promote and facilitate biofuel development investment throughout the region of Central America. It's to bring together investors, developers, landowners, technologists, researchers, governmental and educational organizations to promote what we call the Million Gallon Challenge. The Million Gallon Challenge came about a couple of years ago when we were approached by United States Department of Defense contractors that were developing technology to convert the Tropha biofuel or biofuels into jet or jet fuel. And their requirements were 1 million gallons a day. So we began a very intensive program, research program, to be able to supply them with the 1 million gallon requirement. Out of that, we came up with the 1 million gallon challenge, and we've been promoting that through our harvest experiences. We already have 80,000 hectares pledged in. We're developing strategic partnerships, micro investors, macro investors, renewable energy farms. We realized a number of things while we were developing this program, that we can't just rely on macro investors, that we have to approach the micro investors. And hence we came up with this program. While we were developing the 1 million gallon challenge, we came across some important information. There's an extreme supply and demand gap. We would get, and we still get, daily requests for 40 metric tons per month of oil, 25 metric tons, 10 metric tons, from various refineries and organizations all over the world. And quite simply, we were unable to supply them with that. We simply don't have enough plants in the ground. And the supply and demand is continuing to grow because this is a mandated product. So more and more people are, by law, have to involve themselves in biofuels and supplement their fuel system with biofuels. But there's simply not enough plants in the ground. So we always have to tell macro investors that they have to guarantee their own supply because it's cheaper. Otherwise, they're going to be on the bid market, and it's going to become more and more difficult in the future. Anytime you have a supply and demand ratio that's so extreme with a mandated product, essentially this means that you're always going to have end buyers. Very, very high. The solution the solution is quite simple. We simply need more plants in the ground, as many biofuel or oil-bearing plants as possible. We need to engage micro and macro investors, and we have to look at different ways of commercial developments, intercrop and cooperatives. We have to plant as many trees as we absolutely can that produce biofuels. So renewable energy farms is one of our solutions that meet all these criteria. This is a typical Jatropha plantation. I'll talk a little bit more about Jatropha and what Jatropha is in a few minutes. It's an agrarian parcel. Grows in the tropics very, very, very well. The plantation itself are broken up into parcels. Parcels are, we include land, the roads, water, and electricity. These are the investment highlights of the renewable energy farms that we're going to be talking about. There's a low break-in investment of $35,000. Micro investor. Micro investor, we call someone that's investing somewhere between $30,000 and $350,000. Typically, we have been dealing with commercial deployments, large-scale deployments. We were getting an extreme, as we were developing the 1 million gallon challenge, we got an extreme number of calls from what we call micro investors saying, look, I have $30,000 I want to invest in biofuels, or I have $50,000 I want to invest in biofuels, what can I do? And we didn't have a solution because all of our developments were commercial. So on one hand, we have an extreme supply and demand ratio. On the other hand, we have an extreme number of micro investors that were looking to invest in something other than just the stock market. So renewable energy farms is a low break-in investment of $35,000. It includes 5,000 square meters of titled property in a post-treated growth market. It's a fully managed plantation of 800 income-producing trees. The biofuel income over the investment term is almost $50,000. That's the returns that the owner gets on his agrarian parcel. And the property valuation is going to rise in a large way over the next number of years. We're going to look at some of those factors. Essentially, these parcels are producing on an average, 38% annual return on investment. These are green oil fields producing high-quality fruit, vegetable oils. And we intercrop two main biofuel-bearing plants. One is Jatropha, and one is Biofuel for Maximus olive oil. These are proven feedstocks. We only grow proven feedstocks. There are a number of them out that we've been working with, but these two particular ones have been proven very high yielding, profitable. Jatropha, for example, was selected by the United States Department of Defense as the #1 drop-in replacement fuel. And since then, we've had a number of aviation companies flying with biofuels. Matter of fact, next year, flights flying into Europe are not using biofuel blends that are going to be packed. So this is again a mandated 1,200 gallons per hectare. Very high oil content of 6% or more. Easily intercrop, and it's already grown here as a proven product. Close to 3. I just want to step back about 100 years, if I can, for a minute. An interesting fact, this is my least colorful slide, but probably one of my most favorite. Rudolf Diesel, over 100 years ago, in 1893, created the diesel engine. And he created that engine to run on biofuels, on clean oil specifically. Now, I believe it was 1912 he actually presented this at a World Expo to the world. And a very interesting quote that he came up after that I've always liked. He said that the use of vegetable oils for engine fuels may seem insignificant today, but such oils may become, in the course of time, as important as petroleum. And here we are now, 100 years later, with various mandates and protocols all around the world to grow biofuels. That we need to look at biofuels, and we need to look at it very, very quickly. There's a number of reasons for that. Fossil fuel and biofuel prices will continue to rise dramatically over the coming decade. And people like Goldman Sachs and analysts, they project quite large increases. As a matter of fact, I checked the oil prices this morning, and it was still over $90 a barrel. There's a number of reasons why fossil fuel prices are going to continue to rise. First of all, what they call peak oil. Peak oil is where our supply goes into terminal decline. And most experts agree that this decade we have already reached peak oil, which means that from this point on, our supplies are slowly going to decline to zero at some point. There's rising upstream and downstream costs. It costs us more every year, every month, every day to drill the oil, to transport the oil, to find the oil, to put the oil in the pumps. It's costing more and more. Developing countries like China and India, we did predict this, experts predicted this over 10 years ago, when they said that by 2015, China was going to overtake the United States in terms of energy consumption. Well, they were right. They were just wrong on the year. Earlier this year, China is the #1 energy consumer in the world. India is fast rising up the country. So we have these developing countries, as well as many other ones, that have come onto the market rapidly and are continuing to grow at an exponential rate. Of course, driving fossil fuel prices up, which is why Goldman Sachs predicts $100 a barrel in 2011. And over the next decade, predicting $350 a barrel. But why is biofuels going to rise? Well, that's interesting because essentially it's been globally mandated. We have 127 countries around the world that have already mandated biofuel development. We have aviation industry that's mandated biofuel development and biofuel use. As a matter of fact, the aviation industry consumes 16 billion gallons per year. And like I mentioned earlier, they are going to be taxed flights to Europe if they don't have biofuel plants. Same with the transportation industry. They have been mandated. We have protocols like the Kyoto Protocol, which and Copenhagen and Cancun. These are driving further and further standards to be developed for biofuel development. And of course, as James mentioned, Costa Rica has the National Biofuel Program. They have a carbon neutrality goal of 2021. And they have a 10% blend requirement by 2012. They just recently, earlier this year, privatized biofuels. Essentially, that means that they've been ordered by the government that every gallon of biofuel that's grown in this country has to be purchased at fair market value. So we're going to see unprecedented growth over the next coming decade for biofuels. So we went to our advisory board and we said to them, look, on one hand we have an extreme supply-demand gap. We do not have enough plants. The macro developers are not growing fast enough. Great, because obviously larger developers take a long time to develop. And we have, on the other hand, we have an extreme number of micro investors that are looking to invest. And we need the trees in the council to come up with a solution. We gave it some parameters. It has to be for the micro investors. It has to meet national biofuel program demands. It has to be sustainable, of course. It has to have a low entry point of $35,000. The investor has to have the security of titled real estate. There's a lot of opportunity out there in biofuel investment where you are simply putting dollars into a fund, but you don't actually have title ownership of anything. So this is a very important point for us to be able to offer to investors pay for itself within a 10-year period or more, or less, through the biofuel income. And the combined return on investment must be 300% over the term of they gave up with renewable energy farms in what we call hotspots. We sent our teams out to find hotspots. A hotspot is a piece of property or land or an area that is going to see rapid proven development growth over the next 5 to 10 years. And of course, it has to be ideal growing conditions for biofuels. This is what we call hotspots. This particular map here is only showing 2 hotspots. You're going to be talking about renewable energy farms. But there's actually been about 4 or 5 identified throughout the region. What makes this particular area probably the most interesting in Costa Rica right now, in terms of investment over the next 10 years, is of several factors. It's a couple of Buenos Aires canton or county, I guess you can say. And the entire southern zone has not seen the development that the way best in Costa Rica has. So they're considering it the next market sector, growth market sector in Costa Rica. Now, to look at some of the factors for the southern zone, very interesting in terms of land values. First of all, the third international airport is just been approved this year, for Palmasur. Now let me just back this up for 1 second. You can see on the map here, Palmasur is just a few minutes away from Argentina, about 30 to 45 minutes, depending from the renewable energy farms. And we have a track record on what happens when a new international airport comes in. We had one international airport, it's San Jose Airport, here in the Central Valley. It became overloaded, so they developed an airport in the northern region called Bolivia. Now what happened in that region, as soon as the airport was starting to be built, the landing prices would quadruple over the next couple of years, simply because of the infrastructure. And this particular one is very exciting for us because it's the third international airport. We already know the track record of what happens when that airport moves in. We're only going to be 45 minutes from the new airport. The other important point is that there's the second largest infrastructure project in all of Central America going into this valley in the southern zone. And it's a hydroelectric dam that's going to feed regions both north and south in Central America. And it's number 2 in all of Central America in terms of largest infrastructure project, second only to the Panama Canal. Another important point is that this area is considered the best agricultural area in Costa Rica. And we already have Trofa and the Macul Palm achieving yields. It's also only 1 hour from Valpito with the Panama border. Valpito is a very large free zone. It's a beautiful area on the Osa Peninsula. Osa Peninsula hosts the Porcobello Park, the largest biological reserve in Central America. And you're less than an hour away from some of the best beaches in Central America. Some of them have been rated in the top 10 of the world. This picture I had put in just before I began the renewable energy farms part. This actually is a river. I'm a river fisherman from way back in Canada, and I was on this. I was down on the renewable energy farms earlier this year, and this is a river that's running directly through the property. Beautiful, beautiful river, and I just had to take a picture because it's one of my favorites. This is the master plan of the renewable energy farms. Limited launch, as James mentioned, we had 8 parcels, and now I believe we only have 4. I think 4 already reserved of the renewable energy farms in Buenos Aires. The investment parameters, the type of asset, of course, is biofuel producing, Trofa and Macul Palm. The investment is annual revenue as well as land appreciation growth. The tenure is 10 years. That is optional. We'll talk a little bit about that. Your protection or your security is that this is title of land in Costa Rica in your name. The property size is a minimum of 5,000 square meters, and the investment starts at $35,000 for one property. Now let's take a look at the revenue forecast. Why this is such a strong investment. You'll see in the biofuel income column that Trofa starts producing in the first year and continues to produce for the next 50 years, actually, as long as you decide to have the biofuel plantation. At years 5 7.5% increase appreciation rate yearly for the next few years up to year 5. And that's a little bit higher than the average price in Costa Rica, which is usually about 5.6. But they feel that this particular area, because of the airport, is going to see significant growth. And then once the first phase of the airport is done, and the second and third phases begin in years 5 through 10, they're predicting that the values of land are going to rise to 10% per year, giving $154,000 in terms of land appreciation of land value after 10 years. So this is a very strong investment in terms of its ROI at 38.2% average years. Now, one important point I want to mention here is we've been talking with a lot of micro investors over the last couple of years, and we survey them, we question them, they come into our various micro investment programs, including energy funds. But we were getting a lot of questions because typically people were coming down to Central America, specifically Costa Rica, and they were investing in a condo investment. They were looking for income-producing property, and at that time, the only option essentially was to buy a condo and try to rent it out over the next number of years until they were ready to retire in 10 or 15 years. And that was essentially their income property investment. So we've got a lot of questions. Well, how do you compare renewable energy farms versus a condo investment? So we drew up this slide just to kind of give a quick synopsis of the comparison. You'll see that on the renewable energy farm side, for $175,000, you can actually purchase 5 lots. Compare that to the average condo investment in this area, which was or on the coast, which is $220,000. The land value in 10 years on those 5 lots is projected to be worth $770,000, and the land value on one condo is projected to be $500,000. So significant difference there. Notice the question marks. When I asked our experts, I said, why did they put the question marks there? They said, well, we don't know what the value of that condo is going to be in 5 years. If they put up 5 more condos around you, and more condos for sale for rent, that is going to drive your price of that down. The total income on the renewable energy farm is almost $250,000, as opposed to the condo, which was $50,000. Again, the question marks. And they said, well, we base this number on the fact that you're going to have to rent this condo 2.5 times a month, regularly, consistently over the next 10 years. In a fairly competitive market, there's a lot of condos out there for rent. So you would have to consistently do that 2 times a month, every year for the next 10 years to come up with $50,000. Total value of your 5 lots compared to the condo is over $1 million. Total value, questionable, on the condo is $550,000. But what do you get with your 5 lots? Well, you have ownership of all the land and title property in a high growth area. It gives you more flexibility in that you can liquidate a lot whenever you need. If you need cash and you want to build a house, you can build a house. If you need cash and you want to sell 1 or 2 lots, you can do that. You can sell a lot. You pay for the cost of building your home on another lot. Keep the rest of the biofuel program. Most importantly is you get 5 title pieces of property. That's approximately, that is a little over 6 acres. As opposed to the condo, you've got program and build your house. You can stay in the biofuel, go on the biofuel program and build your house where you can sell 1, 2, 3, or 4, however many lots that you're buying. We made it very simple in terms of steps. You need to reserve your renewable energy farm investment parcel. You would receive a package that you have to fill out. You would then receive your Big Oilfield National Biofuel Certificate, which is something that you need to hang on to because something we haven't talked about is reforestation credits and carbon credits, which are coming online very fast over the next couple of years. And this biofuel, National Biofuel Program certificate qualify you for that. And of course, you'll be able to see your investment in the National Registry. You'll begin earning income immediately for the first year. Let me summarize the investment highlights. The low break-in investment of $35,000. 5,000 square feet of your title property, security, that's title property in a Costa Rica growth market. We fully manage plantation. In other words, we plant, we harvest, clean your properties, keep them clean. Every year we plant, prune, we manage the plantation, we put in drip irrigation when we need to make sure that the plants are producing the maximum yield. We harvest, we process, and we sell your product, and we return 100% less management fees of the biofuel process. Management fees is 10%. So essentially, you're getting almost 100% of the biofuel proceeds over the course of the term, and it's fully managed. The property will pay for itself, more than pay for itself in 10 years, 49,000 plus. At today's prices, like I mentioned, I'm not putting in any increase in prices. We'll go up. And the property valuation over investment term is almost $120,000. It's located in Costa Rica's, one of Costa Rica's primary hotspots in terms of real estate development. It gives you maximum flexibility. It combines two growth markets, both renewable energies and high growth real estate area. And your sales are guaranteed. The mandated market, the Costa Rican government has mandated it, and as well we have several other end buyers that are essentially lining up at our door, like I mentioned. Not having enough plans. All of these combined are going to return approximately 38% annual, and this is what makes this a smart capital and property investment. I just wanted to share as I wrap up here and begin to hand control back over to James. Some of the pictures of the area. This is very close to the renewable energy farms. These pictures all taken in a beautiful, beautiful area. Coconado Park is there, one of the biological reserves. Exceptionally beautiful agricultural land that are surrounded, the mountains are surrounded, animals below. Interesting point I think James mentioned is that Costa Rica has 5% of the world's biodiversity. In such a small country like Nova Scotia, Canada, having 5% of the world's biodiversity. You cannot go for, even in the city, you walking in the city, you see wildlife everywhere. It's very, truly a beautiful animals, beautiful area. Some of the beaches are absolutely phenomenal. Some of them are great on the Pacific coast, and the top, like I mentioned, the top 10 in the world. Stunning scenery. One of my favorite places in the world.
Okay, that was a recording, as I mentioned, of Michael speaking about the renewable energy farm in the southern zone in Costa Rica, and he sends his apologies that he couldn't make tonight's webinar. So apologies to everybody there. Okay, and we'll just get everything up and running again in terms of the presentation. If we just get that running now. And again, my apologies that Michael couldn't make our presentation this evening. So let's move right along. And so just a quick reminder, a quick overview of what we've spoken about. So Costa Rica is a country which represents a tremendous investment opportunity. We have in the renewable energy farm development land, and that development land in itself is being driven by a couple of drivers. Number one, increased demand. Number two, reducing supply because of the Costa Rica's aims to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021. Now remember, location plays a huge role in everything you do when you're looking at any type of land investment. And the important local factors for this particular development are the Palma Sur airport is being expanded to allow international flights to arrive. And as Michael spoke about, we have experience and we know what happens when international flights start arriving in an airport, and we have experience of that in Costa Rica in Liberia Airport. And effectively, once Liberia Airport opened for international airline traffic, land prices in the area went up about fourfold within a period of a couple of years. And the reason is quite simple. It just became vastly more accessible. The other local factor that's going to affect land prices in the southern zone is the development of this Ladicus dam project, which is the second largest capital expenditure program ever in Central and Southern America. And again, with that will come significant infrastructure improvements and basically better access to the area. The southern zone as it exists right now is very, very beautiful, but it has limited access. And because of that limited access, basically land prices, because of limited access, land prices reflect that. However, with improved access, with improved facilities, those land prices are going to rise strongly. Now, Michael had mentioned that we had 8 lots in the launch offer. In fact, all of those lots are now reserved. However, we have a further 50 lots available further back into the finca. And for the attendees on this webinar, I'm delighted to say that Daniel Yepes from Day Group and also from UBA has agreed that anybody investing who attends this webinar, their investment will be delivered already in its own Costa Rican SA, which is a Costa Rican limited company. Now that has significant value. As a basic rule, if you're planning to invest in land or property in Costa Rica, you should hold it in a Costa Rican SA or limited company. And there are 2 advantages to that. Number one, when you plan to sell on the property, it makes that process very, very simple and straightforward. And number 2, it ensures that you pay the minimum amount of tax if it's held in a Costa Rican SA. Basically, it protects you from being charged income tax or personal tax and exposes you only to corporate tax. And I'm delighted to say that there is no capital gains tax in Costa Rica. So you would be exposed to a 0% tax, which is always a nice way to be. The cost of setting up a Costa Rican SA varies from about $500 to $1,000, and so that has a value to you. Number one, it reduces the hassle, but number 2, it has a value of between $500 and $1,000. Secondly, as Michael mentioned, UBA run the Jatropha Harvest Experience. Last year they ran 1, this year they plan to run 2, 1 in Colombia and 1 in Costa Rica. And again, I'm delighted to say that anybody investing who attended this webinar this evening will get a ticket to the Jatropha Harvest Experience of their choice. And these tickets normally cost $1,500. So again, a very significant value there. So ultimately, there's the Jatropha Harvest Experience, and that's the value, $1,500. So if you're on this webinar this evening and you're interested in this and you want to get these added bonuses or these added advantages, just send an email to info@costaricainvest.ie, include your name, your phone number that you can be contacted on tonight, please, and the number of lots that you might be interested in. We'll then contact you in the order in which you've entered your names. And if you're interested in this opportunity, I strongly advise you to send an email now and get on that list and get registered. So now let's see if we have a chance to take some questions this evening. And I do see some questions here already. Let me have a quick scroll down. Apologies, it's the questions unfortunately don't come in a very clear order here, but let's scroll right to the top. Okay, so the first question that we have is, are there any additional investment costs? Okay, well, additional investment costs, yes, there are. on closing, the standard way to get involved is that it is a 15% deposit. I beg your pardon, sorry, a 10% deposit, which is fully refundable. And that 10% deposit is fully refundable less a $250 contract fee. Once the 10% deposit is down, the contract is issued. The contract is issued within 5 days of the land being reserved, and then you have 10 days in which to review, check out, and then sign and return the contract. On signature and return of the contract, a further 45% is payable, and nothing further is payable until the land title is transferred into your name. That takes about 30 days. About 30 to 45 days. On the contract it mentions 30 days, but my experience is it generally takes a little bit longer, about 45 days. There are closing costs, and the closing costs are 3.2% of the purchase price, plus a $500 legal fee. So 3.2% of the purchase price plus a 5.2% legal fee. So that's $1,120 is the closing cost. That covers your stamp duty, your taxes, and your notary charges. And then there's a $500 legal fee as well. Okay. What are the yearly costs? Okay, the next question is, what are the yearly costs? Okay, well, the yearly costs are twofold. Number one, there is the cost of managing and looking after your Jatropha and Macuuba plants, and that is charged by UBA, and it is charged at 10% of the yield of the Jatropha and Macuuba. I should add that all of the projections that Michael was talking about are net of that 10% charge. So net of that 10% charge, after that 10% charge has already been taken away. So they're equally as engaged in making your Jatropha and Macuuba produce as much Jatropha oil and as much biofuel as it possibly can, because the more it they produce, the more their 10% is worth to them. So that is a cost. It's not a direct cost. It's not something you put your hand in your pocket for. The second cost is the Homeowners Association fee, and the Homeowners Association fee covers the general maintenance of the public areas, security, and all of that aspect of running the finca, and that's the Homeowners Association fee. That is $300 per year, but it's already included in your initial first-year investment, so you don't get charged that until year 2 when your biofuels are starting to produce a reasonable income. Okay, the next question that we have is, how do I exit the investment? How do I get out of the investment? Okay, well, that's a great question, because that is something that you must always consider when considering any investment. Is, where is my exit strategy? So many people, when they get involved in an investment, they get involved in investments that only have one exit strategy. That's very limiting and a poor investment strategy. The great advantage to the renewable energy farm is that it does combine a number of asset classes. You've got land, you've got the development use of the land, you've got the Jatropha and biofuel producing on the land. So if you plan to exit the investment, well, quite simply, you would sell the land and the Jatropha and Macuuba growing on it. Who would you sell it to? Well, it depends on your timeline. Existing and established Jatropha and Macuuba plantations have a very significant added value. Needless to say, I mean, as Michael was talking about in his projections, the Jatropha and Macuuba, if there is no price increase in biofuels, should be producing you a return of about $7,000 a year, and that's with no increase in biofuel prices. So in 5 years' time, that should be producing you $7,000 a year. So by definition, that brings significant added value to the land. And of course, the Jatropha and Macuuba, well, the Macuuba will continue to produce for 25 years in total. The Jatropha will produce for up to 50 years in total. So it's a very long-standing investment. So ultimately, how would you exit the investment? Well, you would sell your land. That's the easiest way to do it. Who would you sell it to? Well, it could be to another Jatropha, perhaps Macauba, biofuel interested investor, more likely who you'd sell it to would be one of these retiring baby boomers planning to come to Costa Rica to spend a significant amount of time there. Of course, they would have the added advantage that they could build on the land, build their dream home, and it produces them an income whilst they live on it. Or they could take the very green and eco-friendly route, which is that they could produce their own biofuel from the Jatropha Macauba growing on the land and use that to power their own house, which would be a very sustainable method of living. In terms of how would you sell that? Well, you would go to one of the local estate agents, perhaps, who would sell it into America or the USA, or alternatively, of course, we're always here as well and we'll be delighted to assist you in that regard. The next question we've got is, can I build on the land myself? And the answer to that is yes, of course. There's nothing to preclude you from building on the land yourself. You would need to clear away a little bit of the Jatropha Macauba and build on that. But yes, absolutely, these are fully serviced lots. The services will be in within 2 years. There's road access, water, electricity to each of the lots. Now, if you were planning to build in the short term, remember that all of the facilities to all of the lots, the plan is to have it all in within 2 years. So, you know, if you planned to build in 3 months, that may not be a practical suggestion, but certainly from 2 years on, there would be nothing to stop you doing that. Okay, another question in here, and it relates back to one of the answers that I gave earlier. Can I sell at any time? And there's a sort of an addendum there. What is the 10-year period? Okay, well, the 10-year period that Michael was talking about is just a purely arbitrary period that Michael picked out for the sake of for his projections. You own the land, you own the Jatropha, you own the Macauba. You can exit, you can sell that land and the Jatropha and Macauba at any time. Remember that the Jatropha and Macauba will not be up to full production until year 5, because of course they have to grow. So from year 5 on is when you start to really maximize your Jatropha and Macauba returns. But you can sell the land at any time. Anytime. There's nothing to stop you selling the land at any time. Okay, the next question that we've got here is, does the $49,000 include the management fee? Okay, yes, no, the $49,000 is after so that projection is after the management fee has been taken away. That's after the management fee has been taken away. Okay. Okay, I think I'm just scrolling down through the questions, and I think I seem to have answered them all. I'm also conscious that we've run over our time here this evening. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And as I mentioned, if you want to take advantage of the 2 bonus offers that are for attendees on this webinar, simply register your interest by sending an email to info@costaricainvest.ie. Include your name, your phone number, the number of lots that you might be interested in. We do have 50 more lots available, and we will, and then that will register your interest. And as I mentioned, the bonus offer is that each of these lots, for those attending this evening, will come already registered in its own Costa Rican SA, and that has a value of somewhere between $500 and $1,000 to you. And you'll also get a ticket to the Jatropha Harvest Experience of your choice, whether you want to go to the one in Colombia or perhaps more practically to the one in Costa Rica. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And if you are seriously interested in this, I strongly advise you to send that email and register your interest now. And of course, we're always here should you have any other questions. And again, my apologies that Michael was unable to attend to present live this evening. But thank you very much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.